Hello and welcome to your Fantasy Premier League one-stop shop. I'm your host Stephen Gallagher, world number 3 in points totals over the past 3 seasons. Today we'll be looking at all the key points for Game Week 5, who to buy, who to sell, fixtures to target, wildcard drafts and captaincy. Let's get straight into it, starting with some key points. The first key point, injury news. I'll go through these quickly. Slot says Alisson is a doubt for this weekend. Isak is a doubt with an eye injury and reported toe injury. João Pedro trained, he just had a knock, which is why he missed the last game. Should be good for this weekend. De Bruyne off injured at halftime against Inter Milan, which opens up more playing time for Foden and Gundogan potentially. Watkins came off and had ice on his ankle, but Emery says he's fine and it was a normal substitution. Odegaard is out for a while with an ankle injury. Saka is fine and played 70 minutes against Atalanta midweek. One of the big key points for this weekend is Isak. He is a doubt for this weekend. He's trained but went off at halftime with an eye injury and now reportedly has a toe injury. Either way, Newcastle have been poor going forward. He plays Fulham and then his fixtures turn sour. If you want to keep him for the Fulham game, you can, but that should be his last chance. In terms of replacements around his price point, Watkins is the obvious replacement. He's finally found his shooting boots against Everton and his upcoming fixtures are great. He ranks second for forwards in expected goal involvement after Haaland. He's the obvious replacement for me. If you already have Watkins and are looking for a replacement, Havertz is another good shout. Yes, they play City and yes, he played deeper to cover for Odegaard last week, so he's not an immediate buy, but more of a wait and see for the City game and then get him in for the Leicester and Southampton games. Next up is Solanke. He's only played 2 games and not returned yet, but he's a starting striker in a very attacking team with good upcoming fixtures. If that Spurs attack starts to click, then you'd imagine Solanke will be on the end of a lot of chances. A quick note on Saka, because I see a lot of people are still transferring him out, probably to fund a move to Salah. What I will say is he's the only player besides Haaland to have returned in every single game week so far, and he's created every single Arsenal goal this season except for the one he scored, which is insane. He plays City next, then Leicester and Southampton at home. These are incredible fixtures for an incredible player. If you have him, then I'd hold, and if you don't have him, then I'd look to get him in after the City game. Another talking point is Gvardiol and Lewis. Lewis started against Brentford, then got subbed for Gvardiol at halftime, so both players just got 1 point, which is sickening for managers. They both played 90 minutes against Inter Milan in the Champions League midweek. Walker played 90 against Brentford, Stones is back and can play in that midfield role very well too. So Pep Roulette is in full flow here and it's only going to be a guessing game trying to predict who gets minutes. Because of this, for me, Gvardiol is a sell. As a 6 million defender, he's not guaranteed minutes, then he's a sell. I'd go for Gabriel, Saliba or Robertson instead. And for Rico Lewis, it's hard to say because he's so cheap and he's started every single game. I wouldn't say he's a priority transfer out, but he's definitely a hold for now and wait and see how he gets on, but have a good bench option in case he doesn't start. Next key point is Wissa and Muniz. I put these two together because they're both sells and are around the same price point. Wissa is out for a couple months according to Thomas Frank, so he's an obvious sell, which is really unfortunate because he's looked fantastic and would have been the top of the list to replace Isak for a lot of people. Muniz is a sell because he lost his starting spot to Raul Jimenez, who scored, so Muniz will likely not start the next game either. Who to replace these guys with is a very interesting discussion, and this is what I love about FPL, using the data to find those budget differentials. And looking at this plot of expected goal involvement for forwards under 7 mil, I'll walk you through my thinking. So Cunha has the best numbers here, but Wolves fixtures are very tough, so I'm not looking at him or Wolves forwards right now, so I'll remove them. Welbeck ranks second here, but again, Brighton's fixtures are poor, so I'm not considering them currently. They're gone. That leaves the 3 best options as Vardy, Wood and Calvert-Lewin. Focusing on these 3 players, we can see based off these attack and fixture difficulty ratings from FPL Optimize, they all have great fixtures coming up, especially Everton. Leicester have that Arsenal fixture in game week 6, but around that, the fixtures are great. Same for Wood, really good fixtures to target over the next 6 game weeks. To add an extra layer of analysis, I like to see the team expected goals to get an idea of how the squad as a whole is attacking. And none of these teams are known especially for their massive attacking hauls, but we can see that Wood is ahead of Calvert-Lewin and Vardy here. And in general, having watched the first 4 games, Forest have improved a lot since last year. They look really good. So to wrap up, my overall ranking is Wood, Calvert-Lewin, then Vardy. 2 things to note. First of all, Calvert-Lewin was sick but has trained, so no worries there. Maybe a little bit of doubt, but it looks like he should play. Second thing is wildcard timing. So if you plan to wildcard in game week 6, then This is just going to be a 1 week punt, and I'd go for Vardy against Everton at home. If you plan to wildcard any game week after that, it's almost a 50-50 between Calvert-Lewin and Wood. It depends on how you play the game. If you're more of a fixtures man, then I'd say Everton and Calvert-Lewin look the better option, but if you're looking at the team as a whole, I think Nottingham Forest look really solid, and I'd go for Wood. Next up is defenses to target. Looking at these defensive fixture difficulty ratings from FPL Optimized. Everton, Ipswich and Leicester rank top over the next 6 game weeks, but I'm not going to recommend you get players from these teams. They don't have the best defensive records so far in the league, and until I see something change with that regard, I'll be avoiding myself. Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, have been fantastic defensively, ranking 3rd in the league for expected goals conceded. In 4 games, they've only conceded 2 goals and have 2 clean sheets, one against Liverpool away at Anfield. If you want a slice of that Nottingham Forest defence, then Sells and Aina are the best value options in my opinion. Sells looks like the best value of all the 4.5 million goalies. Transferring a goalkeeper is definitely a luxury transfer, but if you're on a wild card, then I'd 100% have him in there. Aina is down to 4.4 mil. He's Forest's most attacking defender, and he's got no attacking returns yet, but he picks up a lot of bonus points whenever Forest do play well. I think he's a great value pick right now. Aston Villa's fixtures also look great. Konsa is a surefire pick to start and play 90 minutes, an absolute lock in that Villa defence. And then there's Digne, who has picked up 2 assists already. We keep talking about Digne's minutes with Maatsen coming in. He's had a few early subs, but mainly around the 70-minute mark. Like I said, this can be a good thing for defenders, getting subbed before your team concedes, so you can keep that clean sheet. I think Digne has to be on more of our radars now if he keeps getting the minutes, because he has great attacking potential. The rest of the teams have a mixed bag of fixtures. I'll go through them quickly. So Brentford with Spurs and United in the next 6, but good fixtures around that. West Ham with Chelsea, Spurs and Man United in the next 6, Spurs with Man United and Brighton. For that reason, I'm just going to recommend 2 of the best attacking defenders in the league, and that's Porro and Trent. These are 2 players to definitely consider. Regardless of fixtures, they attack and they get returns, which is what we want in FPL. Next up is attacks to target. As we mentioned before, Everton's fixtures are amazing. They're not a team that score a lot of goals, but when they do, it's usually one of these 2 lads involved, and that's Dwight McNeil and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. 2 great options to go for from a fixture perspective. Ipswich have the lowest expected goals in the league, so although Smodics, Hutchinson, Delap, they offer good value, I don't think the squad as a whole will deliver enough goals to justify going for them. Next up is Villa. Watkins should be on everyone's radar because he's finally scored, and when this man is on form, he's going to score a lot. And looking at these fixtures, you'd expect him to clean up. I'm looking at him for my team, and I think you should too. Other than that, Rodgers is still a great value pick, my favourite first bench option. And Duran is another interesting one, 3 goals in 4 games. He keeps coming on and scoring, and Emery has mentioned the possibility of Watkins and Duran starting together. I think he's one to keep an eye on still, but if you're brave enough to face the minutes risk, I think he's a great shout. For Leicester, we already mentioned Jamie Vardy. Another one to keep an eye on is Steffi Mavididi. He was fantastic in the Championship last season. His minutes are a bit of a concern, but he started his first game of the season against Palace last week and scored, so keep an eye on him. Brentford also have great fixtures coming up. With Wissa out for a while, the question of who will play up front was answered midweek in the League Cup, where Kevin Schade led the line. He's emerged as a serious option right now, and at his price point, he could be really good value. The other standout option is Mbumo. He's on penalties, and he's Brentford's talisman. What's not to like? Quick fire through the rest of these teams. For Forest, Wood and Gibbs White are the best options in terms of minute security and attacking threat. Spurs attack has been lacking, but if they click, then Solanke is great value. Other than that, it's hard to say. Son hasn't really justified his price tag yet, and Brennan Johnson could also be good value if he can get consistent minutes. Man City attack is one to watch, with De Bruyne potentially out injured now, which, like I mentioned, could open up minutes for Foden and Gundogan, but I'd wait another week to bring in either of them. Other than that, Haaland keeps scoring at a ridiculous rate. If you don't have him, my condolences. Next up is Wildcard. I wouldn't suggest wildcarding this week based off how the fixtures swing. Game week 6 is likely a better option, but if you have to wildcard this week, this is the team I'd go for. Sells is in goals. We went big at the back with Trent, Gabriel, Porro, Konsa and Greaves. Midfield of McNeil, Mbumo, Saka, Rodgers and Semenyo, and a forward line of Wood, Haaland and Watkins. There's great fixtures all around, and if you want to squeeze Salah in there, you'd go Watkins and Bumo and Porro out to Salah, João Pedro and Aina. I think if you're stuck in a bad spot and feel like popping your wild card, I'd go for something like this. Next up is captaincy, and captaincy this week is interesting because Haaland plays Arsenal. They're the best defense in the league, and if you're gonna go against the big man, then this is your chance. Salah tops the charts for predicted points. He faces Bournemouth at home, and I can imagine Liverpool wanting to make a stamp on this game after losing 1-0 to Forest at home. Son second on the list. If you own him, he's definitely an option here. Spurs have not been great, but you'd fancy him to score in this fixture against Brentford at home. Palmer, another one to consider. He plays West Ham away. Then the Liverpool boys with Trent, Jota and Diaz. One I'm surprised isn't higher up here is Watkins. I think he's a serious captain shout this week, which brings me to my captaincy rankings. Salah, the best option by far for me, followed by Son against Brentford at home. Then I've stuck Watkins there, Wolves at home. It was actually between him and Son for the second place. And then fourth, I'd go Haaland against Arsenal at home. And then fifth, Palmer against West Ham away. On to my Game Week 3 review. Definitely a game week to forget for a lot of managers, I can imagine. Only 3 of my players returned, and Gabriel and Saka absolutely saved my game week with that corner. It's another green arrow, not a huge green arrow, but still progress. Let's look at my Game Week 4 plans. My number 1 transfer is Watkins in. It's probably the easiest decision I'll have to make. Isak is a doubt and hasn't been amazing. Watkins has great fixtures, is finding his form, and is a genuine captaincy shout this game week. It writes itself really. Next up, Muniz to Wood. That's my other transfer. With Muniz's minutes a concern and no returns from him so far, I think it's time for a change of scenery, and Chris Wood is the new signing for Goon Squad. I'll wait to make my transfers in and around the deadline as per usual, just so I can get as much information as possible, some team leaks, all that good stuff. And I plan to start deadline streams soon, so keep an eye out for those. That's all for today, folks. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more and follow me on Twitter to see my team updates throughout the week. Until next time, guys, have a good one.